Okay, hi, my name is Natasha Grotlish, and I picked Zora Neale Hurston for my author discussion. And her background is, well, she's an African American folklorist and an anthropologist, and folklorist is like a type of writing that she has. An anthropologist is just the study of human societies and cultures and their development. And then she was a very famous author during the Renaissance. She shared many short stories, articles, novels, and plays about discriminatory views toward African American people and especially women. Her work helped shape the Harlem Renaissance, and it gave readers a view of African American culture and pride. She was born January 7th in 1891 in Alabama, and then she died in January 28th, 1960 in Pierce, Florida. Her grandparents were formerly enslaved Georgians, and she was a waitress in a nightclub for her first job, and then a manicurist in a black-owned barbershop that only had white customers. And this picture here is her 8 siblings, and then this one is just a cool picture of her with her bio thing. So in her childhood, she grew up living in Eatonville, Florida, and she was the fifth sibling out of seven. Um, and in this town, it was a all black incorporated town, so all she saw was evidence of black achievement all around her. So when she looked at a town hall, she saw black people, or town churches, or the porch of a village store. And her father was named John Hurston, who was a carpenter and a Baptist preacher, and then her mom was named Lucy Potts Hurston, who directed the Christian curricula and was a school teacher as well. And her mom died in 1904, and Zora was only 13 years old when this occurred. And it took a huge effect on her. Her childhood was over, she said in an article or something, where she had a great childhood and it was happy, but then once her mom passed away, everything had changed for her. So then we go to schooling, and she attended Morgan Academy in Baltimore from 1917 to 1918, and this is where she completed her high school requirements. And if you can see, I have an arrow going here. This is the Morgan Academy. And then after that, she went to Howard University from 1919 to 1924, and this is Howard University. And she was the first African American to attend this university, and this is where she received her associate degree. And then after her schooling took her to Barnard College from 1925 to 1927. It's this picture here. And she was the only African American there, and that's where she studied anthropology with this person named France Bose, who she ended up working for later on. And we'll get to that. And then very later on, you can see the gap here. She attended Columbia University, where she's studying for her PhD in anthropology, and she went in 1935 on a fellowship from the Rosenwald Foundation. And then some of her published work, she published so many different forms of writing. John Redding Goes to Sea in Stylus. She published it to Campus Literary Society's magazine, and it got published in 1912. And it was her first story published. And then The Drenched in Light, which is a short story, and it was in 1924. And then Spunk and Colorstruck were very two popular ones as well. And Spunk is a story, and Colorstruck is a play that she wrote. And both pieces won second place in a contest that she submitted to Opportunities Literary Contest in 1925. And then Spunk the Story got published in the June number. And these two pictures are of both Spunk and Colorstruck. This is Colorstruck and Spunk. And then this is still published work continued. So most of her work is about pride in being herself and the history and culture of African Americans, hard work ethic, overcoming great problems with the race and her effect of the Harlem Renaissance. And a big thing of her was believing in your dreams. And then this picture I included on this slide is her most famous book, is where their eyes were watching God. That was a very well-known one. If you just look up her name, this book pops up first. And then she had four novels published, and then more than 50 published short stories, essays, and plays. And then we go on to her career. So in 1926, she began field work for Boas, who she went to college with in Barnard College. She studied with him and she worked for him in Harlem. She published six more pieces in between marrying Herbert Sheen and starting work with him. And she went to Florida to collect folklore. From January 1926 is when she started the pieces and went to Florida in 1927. So she marries Herbert Sheen in May 19, 1927, and she visits Miss Rufus Osgood Mason seeking patronage. And this occurred in September 1927. And when she then signed a contract with Miss Rufus, where it says here, signs a contract in 1927, which allowed her to return to the South to collect the folklore. And then later on, another huge thing in her life is she breaks things off with Herbert in 1928 of January, but divorces him in 1931. And she writes and published a couple more pieces, both musicals and stories. And then she is awarded a I don't know how to say that, fellowship to study West Indian obeah practices in March 1936. Then we go to the next slide where it's effects on the Harlem Renaissance. And her big thing was to stop discrimination of race. And her plan for this was through using her talent of writing and reaching out and connecting to the audience, hoping to impact them. She was a big leader during this time and she helped protect the rights of African Americans. She was known for her wit, her folk writing, which is the style, her popular novels, her determination as well. And her writing provided a feminine voice during this time, especially since during the Harlem Renaissance it was dominated over by a male's voice. And she showed how the freedom of a black dominant place like Harlem could create a wonderful and inspiring person like herself, because she was very inspiring. And then I incorporated this photo just because this is a picture of her smiling, and I wanted to put this photo on the slide to show how she was so confident and a happy woman, even if she didn't come from the best places and didn't have the abilities like everyone else. And when things got hard, she didn't give up, and she made a huge difference in history with the Harlem Renaissance and impacted many people's lives.